Citizens United is the emblematic decision of the new Gilded Age in which we live. It has empowered a very tiny number of people to have a disproportionate, wildly disproportionate influence over who runs for office, who wins elections, what candidates say, what candidates don't say, and what office holders do, what office holders even are allowed to, are permitted to say and to be taken seriously when in office.
We must overturn Citizens United to fulfill the ideals we affirmed at our nation's founding. Your status in our democracy should not depend upon your status in our economy. Whether you work 3 jobs and barely get by, or you own 3 homes and you barely work, the eyes of our law, the eyes of our government, our elections, must see all Americans as equal.
25 individuals are responsible for half of all super PAC contributions made since the Citizens United decision was handed down. 25 individuals. 0.01% of donors, 0.01% of donors are responsible for roughly 40% of all campaign contributions now. Almost all of the top 100 super PAC donors are white. Our analysis shows that majority white zip codes contribute 20 times the amount to campaigns as majority minority zip codes do.
Is there something about the way that money's been spent under Citizens United that contributes to the thick fog of propaganda that overhangs our politics today?
Well, I think anything that undermines disclosure makes it harder for us to find out who's behind what we're seeing online. I mean, people get all sorts of information online, and I don't think anybody wants to get their news from a Russian troll farm, but people didn't realize that's where they were getting the information from last time. So to the extent that Citizens United has undermined disclosure, I think it has also contributed to that problem.
In nearly any other area of the law, what happens with dark money would be akin to money laundering. But in election law, most dark money is actually legal. And you can improve disclosure by either changing election laws or changing securities laws, or possibly both. And of course, you could expand what Congress can constitutionally regulate if the Constitution is amended to address Citizens United and other campaign finance cases like Buckley.
You expressed how much money has been put into campaigns through these super PACs since Citizens United. Is there any data you have to show if that has affected Americans' belief that their government is not responsible to them?
And the polling on this is really overwhelming about Americans' deep concern with corruption. Asked by one pollster to rate 22 different attributes of American life, the campaign spending system comes in last. Only 20% of people are satisfied in that poll with the current campaign system. The New York Times found that affected with near unanimity, their quote, Americans want to replace the current finance system.
I believe, having been in Congress now 7+ years, that it is dirty money and dirty maps that keeps us in Congress from reaching the consensus that our constituents have reached.
It's not an abstract issue. It is a deeply felt issue. It touches every single issue this Congress and our administration undertake. It's true for issue after issue, whether Wall Street reform or food safety or living wage or common sense gun safety, expanded Social Security, protecting consumer privacy, imposing appropriate corporate taxes, dealing with Pentagon spending, protecting clean water. Almost anything you name is touched by this issue, and it traces back to the disproportionate influence of big money in our elections, where the agenda that the American people want overwhelmingly is not furthered by this Congress because of the political power of these large entities. Polling shows that Americans are furious at the state of affairs. They are outraged by what they perceive to be widespread corruption, and they are overwhelming their support for fundamental campaign finance reform. Indeed, democratic legitimacy itself is at stake. Democratic legitimacy itself is at stake. There is overwhelming support for a constitutional amendment among the American people to overturn Citizens United and related decisions. It crosses party line. It is felt throughout the country. It is overwhelming. It is reflected in 20 states that have passed resolutions calling for a constitutional amendment, more than 800 cities and towns that have called for a constitutional amendment.
To be clear, this issue is not partisan among the American people. In 2018, The University of Maryland reported that 75% of Americans, 3/4 of all Americans, support a constitutional amendment to allow for limits on election spending. That includes 85% of Democrats, 70% of independents, and 2/3 of Republicans.